Excellent. Hi,
Well,
Dan.
hey there.
You have a little theme music lead in. That's fantastic. Yay. All right. We are all met. So, hey, everybody. This is the VO Dojo's Ask the Sensei. This is a free um, question and answer webinar that we do the first Wednesday of every month. I'm here answering questions. Dan is our techno sensei, and we usually have another guest sensei, an esteemed colleague of ours, that comes to answer questions with us on Wednesdays as well. In these unprecedented times, we thought that it would be really valuable for everyone just to have some Sensei Dan time, just to open this up to focusing mostly on home studio questions, which is Dan's specialty and calling. So that's what we're mostly going to be focused on. If you have other questions that you want to get answered, pop them in there, because we can also answer other questions. But yeah, Dan, how are you? And what
I'm
else would
good.
you like to share about yourself?
Yeah, well, I've been busier than a one-arm paper hanger, as they used to say.
Yeah.
Now, I am the home studio master, and I teach people how to build their home studios. And there's not a lot to it. And again, people are completely overthinking the entire process and thinking it's this big, intimidating thing because you've got to have an IBM mainframe computer and you have to understand computer language and have a big. No, it's really none of that. I think we can simplify it down to if you've ever used a cassette recorder, we can probably get things done for you.
even as boomers can do that, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the fascinating things about this situation. In so many ways, it's a great leveler. That and I don't know if it's encouraging or discouraging, but it's just true that if you were just starting on your journey, you might be like, oh, dear Lord, what do I need to do? But there are those of us who've been doing this forever that also, like, there's people who've been doing this forever who are also having those same feelings of, oh, dear Lord, what do I do? So it's really interesting how everyone's in a place where we all have to be aware and step into responsibility, and then find a place where we're comfortable and confident with our recording situation and how to run it. So Dan, did you want to just jump right in with questions? You want to lay a little frameworks that might.
Well, yeah, I did want to get something clear to a lot of people because there's been a lot of stuff running around the business about you have to have this and you have to have that. And a lot of this is coming down from a giant game of ridiculous telephone from recording engineers in studios to agents with a lot of people in between, to where you have engineers who do things the way they do and have no concept that you're doing this from a closet somewhere in Des Moines. And they toss out what they know as proper recording in a $250,000 perfectly acoustically sterile and neutral environment through an expensive microphone and lots of equipment that they can manipulate the voice with. But when it comes down to it, it's much simpler than that. But they're telling, especially when it's coming to, through agents and stuff like that, what's happening is they're telling the casting directors and the account executives that people have to have this because they've got to do this. And that's being tossed on to some casting directors, who it's being tossed on to agents who've never done this a day in their life, have no idea what they're talking about. I'll never work again. But they're telling people things like, oh, well, you need snorspoodle and snowfools. That's what they told me, without asking for clarification to what it is that the higher ups had said to them, and they have no concept. And they're telling people, and people are panicking, when in reality what's happening is these edicts are going out saying, we won't talk to somebody unless they have this. In order to have that, though, you've got to have the experience and the knowledge to know how to use it. And you're not going to learn what took them 25 years to learn overnight. So stop worrying about it. And besides that, it's not that tough because what they're asking for is way beyond what you need. Plus,
And just to clarify, who's the they
yeah,
there?
the engineers and the production companies.
Okay, so the clients, the engineers on the production companies on the side of that you'll be working with and interfacing with the clients, or is the they that you're talking about there?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening is this giant miscommunication, and also the fact that they may not be recording in a studio either. These, there might be a recording engineer sitting in his underwear somewhere, doing a remote session, and all that stuff that he was talking about back in this big 2,500, $250,000 studio is totally irrelevant. So there's this big gap of information and knowledge and concept and terminology that you've got to take, an eraser and just get it out of your head because it's got nothing to do with you, especially if you're a beginner.
Mm-hmm.
And to worry about what you need to have as a beginner, as opposed to somebody who's been doing this for 25 years, whose career is on the line, are very, very different things. And I think that's been badly communicated from all ends. And my job here is to take that bulk eraser and get it out of your brain.
So we'll be able to clear and dispel as we answer questions. And so in a nutshell, Dan, what would you say is the bottom line? Like, how would you simplify that? And then you just implied that there's some distinction if you're starting and if you're established. What would be the differences? What would be the differences there?
Well, it comes down to the three basics that I always talk about: acoustics, mic technique, and setting proper levels. The rest of this stuff is gobbledygook and nonsense that you're getting from a lot of Facebook forums.
So say the three again.
They are the acoustics of the room you record in, which is 90% of the quality of your audio.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Proper microphone technique,
Mm-hmm.
which we can talk about,
Right.
and setting proper levels. With, and then there's this concept everybody's talking about: broadcast quality, of which there is no such thing. It is an obsolete term from 40 years ago dealing with analog broadcast standards, digital recording. If you listen to a game show from the late 60s on Game Show Network, not that I watched that much, but if you watch that, the audio on there would not be acceptable for professional voiceover audio today. And so what I think when people say that, one, I ask, well, what do you mean by that? And they can't give you an answer. I think what they're really trying to say is it shouldn't sound bad. And what is it that makes audio sound bad? Those are controllable things that are all physical. Addendum to that: it's not the mic that gets you work. It's not the interface that gets you work. It's your ability to be a good voice actor and not have sound that is interrupted by other things that distract the people listening on the other end from hearing your voice and how you're relating to the copy. So with that, everybody's eyes are now rolling to the back of their head. Let's take a few questions here and see what's going on.
Thurston Cherry, who I just want to meet because that's your name. I keep being told not to buy a USB mic and only do the XLR.
Good question.
And a follow-up of, are USB mics really not recommended?
It depends on the USB mic. There are really bad USB mics, and there are really good USB mics. There are a lot more bad ones than good ones, but they are increasing in quality. The reason USB mics generally are not very good is because they're studio condenser mics, and studio condenser mics require a number of things to happen. One, they have to have enough voltage to run the plate and the diaphragm. You don't have to worry about what that means. It's just that if there's not enough voltage to it, you start getting hissing. That sort of sound of a far-off waterfall. And you don't want that. That's noise that is introduced from the amplifier inside the microphone. It's better to have a separate digital interface dedicated to amplifying the analog signal from the microphone, and then turning it into the ones and zeros that the computer can understand and turn into the graphic representation of waveforms, which is what's going on there. So if you are just starting out and learning how to do this, yeah, you can get a USB microphone and learn proper mic technique and proper level setting, but it would be difficult to do any production work with it. I wouldn't recommend that. So it's always good to get at least a good basic studio condenser mic. Anything $150 or more to up to $300 will probably more than suffice if the environment in which you are recording is sufficient for recording anywhere. Because there are some microphones that are really cheap that if the ambiance of the room is right, it will be okay. If you have a really expensive mic, it's going to pick up every noise in your home or apartment building. So a very sensitive, expensive mic is not recommended unless you have a very expensive vocal booth or have built one at great expense and great great experience, because it's not easy to do.
So we need to find the balance of sound treatment and microphone sensitivity that
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without going into lists, would you like if everyone who's here, could we send out a few recommendations of mics? I'm sure that there's going to be a question of like, where shall we start looking, or how do you start trying out what might be good?
Well, let's see. You can start on page 4.
What you're looking at, it's disappeared.
Well, here, let me go back to some normal background here. All right. So when people ask me this, and I start looking through the catalog at all the different microphones in here, I think people need to understand something. I mean, there's just microphone after microphone. What are they for? They're for making music. They've got nothing to do with voiceover, folks. And how certain microphones pick you up has very little to do with what's in black and white on a page that you're reading. There's no microphone out there that's going to change the way you read copy. And so this obsession with the right mic for you is so misplaced and so time-consuming and so frustrating. Stop it. Keep it simple, I mean, there's a couple of very simple, nice mics out there that are not expensive that will suffice for you. For example,
I'm typing.
An Audio-Technica 2035. Great microphone, heavy duty, and it works great with a good interface. What's that?
What's the price range of that?
I think it's like $130.
You drive a hard bargain, mister.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've seen them anywhere from 130 to 160. 160 is a really high end on that. Okay. The 2020, the Audio-Technica 2020 is just, well, it's cheap. You get what you pay for. It's not the ultimate in studio condenser mics.
So for $60 more, you can get something that passes your test.
Exactly. The AKG Perception series, the P220, a lot of people like the Studio Project C1 series, things like that. Anything that's in that price range, like I said, between $150 and $300 is more than enough.
With these specifics, maybe Dan, maybe we can put together a little like highlights or recommended of, if you are going a USB route, these are things, but here's what you can get for these price range. Like, it's just a few recommendations.
Right. Sure.
Get to the other questions. Yeah.
Right.
Good. Kelly says, how can I eliminate low frequency noises like my neighbor's AC? Pretty please, dear Lord, please.
Well, yeah. Well, somebody asked me last week, I hear birds in the background in my recordings. What do I do? How do I stop that? And my answer was double pane windows and a shotgun. It's like, yell loud, get them out of there, tell the birds to get lost. How do you eliminate low frequency sound? One, you've got to know exactly what that low frequency sound is, and how do you know what frequency it's at?
Mm.
That takes somebody who actually knows how to use a spectrogram and looks at these individual frequencies and says, okay, this low frequency is below the actual frequency of your voice, therefore we can run a high pass filter on that. And depending on what software you have, whether it's Audacity, Adobe Audition, Twisted Wave, even some of the, a lot of people seem to like Reaper. The more I look at Reaper and I'm like, and you find this easier? I don't quite get it. There's no need for you guys to go out there and get these complicated multi-track programs. One, you don't need to know multi-tracking. It's going to take you years to learn it. And you don't have to know it because the engineers on the other end don't care. All they want is a single track mono well modulated file that doesn't have any background noise. And that's got nothing to do with the software you have. And all software, all simple softwares like Audacity, Twisted Wave, Adobe Audition especially, all have everything you could possibly need for voiceover. Mm-hmm. And to look at people saying, well, this is great because it's got this feature, it's got that feature, it's got this, that, the other thing. Who cares? They're not in your closet. So, and they don't, right.
Keeping it as simple as
exactly.
Possible. If you
exactly.
You need a vehicle that gets the job done, and it doesn't matter what rims it has.
Right, exactly. And a lot of it has to do with the workflow of the program and how easily you can run through menus. But for me, it's like, turn it on, hit record. And then arm the track and set this thing and set that thing. You want it, turn it on and go, like a cassette recorder.
I love this little shift in understanding of there's music production and there's what you need for voiceover. That's a really good how to keep it simple. Now, coming back to Kelly's, how do you deal with a low frequency? So your answer was
a high pass filter, which I can demonstrate very, very quickly here.
Sure. Let's see what it is, because I think also in seeing it, then for those of us who may not be as well versed with even what a visual of the sound looks like, there'll be concepts that we'll just be able to take in real quick.
Exactly.
And then for everyone on here, notice in the poll, everyone's at different parts of their journey and also different parts of their engineering for themselves. So this may be something that you do every day. This may be something like, yeah, whatever. But it also might be like, wait, the whatsy who, where?
Right. All right. Well, can everybody see my screen here?
I can, yes.
Okay, and everybody else probably can as well. Okay, so if I introduce a file, well, say I just record a file here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, this is the problem with Audacity. It doesn't work well. You've got to go through permissions and stuff. So I'll just upload a file. Let's see here. All right. So here's a typical file, and one of the things now from here you can't really tell what's going on with a file as far as frequencies goes. You can see modulation, but you can't see the frequencies. So they give you this little thing called a spectrogram inside that. And what you see here is what this shit represents, and it's not manipulatable from this window the way it is in other software. But what you see is the relative volume of individual frequencies, starting from low to high. And this is the low frequencies down here along the bottom. So I can tell that, the low frequencies are like under 100 hertz or so, based on what I see in the scale over here. And I use more sophisticated equipment to see that. But generally, any low frequency interference or noise is below 100 hertz. So what you do is, I'll go back to the waveform here, and you use something, well, actually, you very simply go into graphic EQ. No, you have to try. I don't use Audacity all that much, because why should I? You go into graphic EQ, you highlight the section you want, and you take out, and this is arranged from low frequencies to high frequencies. Human hearing is basically, 60 hertz to about 10 to 15 kilohertz. So these are arranged in that order from left to right, low frequencies to high frequencies. So your voice really does not exist below 80 hertz in most cases, unless you're Darth Vader. And so you can eliminate all of those frequencies underneath by simply sliding everything down to 0 on this end, and everything below 80 hertz. You can just roll it off a little bit there, and then just click OK, and that takes out the rumble. So if we go back to this,
including the AC from the neighbor.
Well, the AC is a whole different deal. There you're really dealing with some major problems. If you've got a neighbor with an AC, I think what needs to happen is you need to either tell the neighbor or you need to relocate where your studio is. Because if it's too difficult to try and eliminate the noise physically, you got to find another way to do it physically. My philosophy is always do what you can physically. Do not rely on technology to take care of these problems.
Okay.
And so, that means having to do it on the other side of your apartment or the other side of your house or something. That's what you got to do. Either that or walk across the street or next door and unplug their air conditioner. But
yeah, that's going to go over well. Yeah,
that's right. So
okay.
these are some of the limitations of recording at home, which is why they're like, we don't, a lot of the studio, we don't like home studios because nobody knows what they're doing. It's like, well, okay, if you can create an atmosphere and an ambiance that's going to work for you, then stop worrying about it.
Interesting. So, and then just in general, if people have questions about this quality of their thing, they can send you a sample, right? And you can kind of go.
Oh, absolutely. At my website, homevoiceoverstudio.com. For $25, send me a raw sample of your audio, unprocessed, no EQ, no compression, nothing. Just the sound of your voice, the way you normally record it, and I will give it a thorough analysis based on those three things.
Kind of like running a blood test, right? Like here's
exactly, and I'll be able to tell you exactly what's going on, and if you need something a little bit more major, then we can talk about doing a full consult and working with what's going to work for you in your specific space. There's no one size fits all secret sauce to everybody. Every room is different. Every voice is different. And it really requires somebody who knows what it's supposed to sound like in order to get it sounding the way it's supposed to.
So the key is understanding enough to have general knowledge and then having people who can help you make sure that you're it up.
Exactly. And that's what I do.
Yeah, good. Let's pop through some more questions.
Sure.
Questions.
Let's see if we can roll through as many as we can here.
Christine, I would love to know more about headphones. Comfortable over-ear closed back headphones with 1/4-inch jack. Also, if I have 1/8-inch jack headphones, will a 1/4-inch adapter distort the sound too much? Or is there a really good one?
No, the adapters have nothing to do with anything except for fitting a 1/4-inch plug into an 1/8-inch plug. So,
but it doesn't affect quality. Okay.
No, it doesn't affect the quality at all. But as far as headphones go, you want a pair that are comfortable, and because if you're editing and you're listening, you don't want them to be fatiguing on your ears. So you want something that's very adjustable. These are Harlan Hogan Signature Series headphones that you can get from Voiceover Essentials. Very comfortable, and he's been improving them all along, and they have a very flat response. So you want headphones that have a very flat response.
That goes. I just got 2 new headphones, and my husband is always doing like, let's compare and contrast. So, but that goes with your idea that you want to sound like you in the room as much as possible. Right?
Well, you want to hear back exactly what you recorded without any coloration. So if you're using, Beats headphones, you're going to get a very false representation of how deep your voice actually is. And so it's colored at different frequencies. What you want is a flat response where every frequency is the volume that it normally is as we're talking to other people.
Okay, interesting.
And that's and some cheap ones might work fine. A pair of earbuds might work fine. I wear these because that's what I have. But the addendum to that is you only need to wear headphones for playback, not to listen to yourself as you are recording.
Mm,
Because it's distracting. You start to tune into the sound of your voice and not of the character of what's on the page.
mm-hmm.
And I think the best way to describe that is a lot of people try to fall in love with the microphone, when in reality, the microphone should fall in love with you,
Yeah.
because you're a good voice actor and not worrying about what it is you sound like. The fact is if you know your voice, you shouldn't have to worry about what you sound like, because generally we're not wearing headphones when we're talking to other people.
Yeah.
So I'm wearing these so I can hear on Zoom and stuff, but normally just talk the way you talk to other people.
And
And the same thing goes for microphone technique. So
at the dojo, we do a real quick sample of that. We call it the poor man's cans. So headphones are called cans. So do this, everybody do this at home. So put your hands behind your head and then just talk into the room, speak your voice into the room and keep on talking, but then put on your poor man's cans, which is doing this. And then notice your relationship to anything else that's going on. It kind of anything else doesn't matter because it's just you and your voice, right? Talking to your voice. But that's what headphones can do in your relationship. So we're doing all the work that we're doing to connect with the copy and create that exchange of vibrational energy between people. But then you're all like, hey man, my voice is really, really good. And then there's the paradox of when we're in session, we will be working with headphones, so we need to be able to work with it too. So that's the whole.
Yeah. The only reason you really need headphones in a session is to hear the director. In which case, you can still hear the room. You flip up an ear, so you can still hear yourself in the room, and hopefully the director doesn't tell you too much while you're trying to record. So anyway.
Cool. Hopefully this is helpful, Christine. And then one more thing about headphones, Dan. We do not want noise canceling. Right?
No.
And why is that?
Because they're not designed for voiceover. They're for being on a plane. Which none of us are doing these days. So those are for if you live in a noisy environment and you want to listen to music.
And you don't want to hear your mom. That's what my 17-year-olds have.
Does it work?
Yes, all the time.
My son, doesn't have noise canceling headphones, and he still can't hear it, so it doesn't matter.
Cool. Well, hopefully that's helpful, Christine. Anna, let's see. What is the best way to know how good the sound quality from a new home studio is? Oh, I think we kind of talked. Is there anything that in a taking our own temperature sort of way that we should be listening to? Any signs that you're at least on the right track? That's an interesting question.
It is, and it's a real problem, because if you don't know what to listen for, me describing it is not going to help, because some people say, I got a hum. Well, listen to it. No, it's a buzz. Some people say, I have a buzz. No, that's a hum. And they occur at different frequencies, and they come from different things. And because nobody knows how to describe it, it makes this communication a little bit hard. That's why somebody who knows what it's supposed to sound like has to listen to it. And if you're really not willing to invest in that, you want to figure out the cheap way. Well, I think it's good. Look, it's your auditions.
So in general, is there anything? And I think this is interesting because one of the things we talk about at the dojo is listen carefully is one of the rules of voiceover, but it's developing listen carefully on a lot of levels in terms of your work, but then tuning into nuances. So one thing, this is not necessarily going to get you quality, the highest quality sound coming out of your booth, but one exercise that you can do to start noticing things at a deeper level is just take 30 seconds and be absolutely quiet, and then notice the layers of sound that you can hear, because I think even opening your awareness, because when you get down to that, then you hear the fluorescent light, then you hear the refrigerator.
Right.
Then you hear
and there's a reason, right? And there's a reason for that, because your brain has this mixer board in it, and what it does is it will take out monotonous tones. which is why if you're sitting in your kitchen, like you were saying, my refrigerator making a noise?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and then you like, and then you bring, oh yeah, got to bring that one up, and then you suddenly hear the refrigerator, and then you like really tune into it. Boy, it really is making a lot of noise. The problem is this guy doesn't have a brain, and he hears everything, or she hears everything, or it hears everything. Why should they just make it totally gender neutral these days? You know, it doesn't, it can't filter that stuff out. It hears what's there. It hears like the human ear.
Mhm.
And therefore, that's why you need to have, you know, take that time to listen. But you've got to record, and then we have to see how much is being prevented from entering the space in which you record. So if you sit there, like you say, silently, and then go, what am I hearing? What am I hearing? I mean, I got a lot going on in this room right now, but I've got a noise gate on it. So, you know, and Zoom tends to gate these things out. I got a ceiling fan, I got air conditioning going because it's hot today here in Southern California. And so, you know, but you're hearing me clear.
Mhm.
And there's an equation that I throw in here for this that they used to use for, well, they still do, for stereo equipment, called signal to noise ratio. With the stereo, it meant the sound that the actual equipment is making, you know, hums, buzzes, things like that, which is, you know, the better the quality of the stereo, the lower that self noise is. And the signal being music. In voiceover, to me, signal to noise ratio means signal is your voice and noise is everything else. So if you're listening back, what is there that is not your voice? And how do you eliminate that? And my philosophy is get rid of it physically.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like
my
turn it off.
my
You know,
home booth is right next to my son's computer. I'm like, "I can hear you typing."
right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I used back when I lived back in Buffalo, you know, if you know, my studio was in the basement, you know, not too far from the furnace and air conditioning. And, you know, so I just turn it off from the switch. And my wife would come home and say, why is it so cold in here? Or why is it so hot in here? And I
Right.
would say, you know, well, I'm saving money and making money at the same time. So just
Yeah.
remember to
And
turn
then
it back on.
just in general, like to have in your recording, and as close to a smooth line as you can for your sound floor, right? Or as
Right.
low a low a low a sound on your in your what is that up and downy thing in your levels, right?
Yeah.
The
Your
level.
modulation.
Oh, that
Yes.
up and downy thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So many more questions. Let's keep on going. Um, Jacqueline says, I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Sherman Oaks, and my space does not have a walk-in closet. How can I create a space to build my home studio?
Well, you got to have a space for starters. You need an empty space. If you don't have a walk-in closet, one of the ways you can walk around this is go over to Home Depot, and there are plans for building a PVC booth, making a PVC frame and hanging Harbor Freight blanket, you know, moving blankets over it. You know, or you could go a little like more expensive with you know, with Producer's Choice. Ignore that. That's just somebody
Faxing?
somebody throwing something out on garbage day. Um, keep moving. There you go. So you can set it up using, you know, good sound reflection preventing types of things. There's a difference between sound, you know, diffusion and sound. The hell is that?
We can't hear
Oh, I can hear it.
it.
There is somebody with a very loud stereo in my alley here. You know, why have a radio? It's just coming, you know, broadcasting from somewhere else, or it's a garbage truck. Anyway, so you can build a 4x4, you know, cubicle, and then hang blankets using, you know, clamps, and create like, you know, a little shower curtain type area, you know, a circular shower curtain.
Gonna say
And
a sound shower shower
right,
stall.
exactly. Just do it in the quietest possible place you can in your home. Hold on.
And that being somewhere internal, like not exterior walls, not next to
Right.
plumbing, not
Right.
next to mechanicals, meaning
Right. Exactly.
things that are
Exactly.
buzzing, refrigerators or as you said, furnaces.
That
So
is
find it
correct.
like a tornado. If you could find a tornado room in your house, like the most interior.
Oh, yeah, yeah, usually that's a bathroom, and that's a usually bad place
Right.
to
Okay.
record
So not
voiceover.
okay. The wrong metaphor. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Another real easy thing to do is what you have there, Tish, which is that really nice room divider behind you.
Mhm.
And you can take something like that and sort of wrap that, have some blankets on the wall in front of you, put that behind you, and hang more moving blankets over that.
Mhm.
And that usually will prevent a lot of room reflection. So don't obsess about the soundproofing. Just find a place that's really quiet.
Yeah. And I love what you always talk about, Dan. It doesn't matter what it looks like as long as it sounds good,
Right.
right?
Nobody needs to see how the sausage is made.
Um,
They only need to hear it.
yeah. There's a great company in Atlanta called GIK, that has they're just aesthetically gorgeous things. They're wood and really have a lovely aesthetic quality. But there's thing like simple, pretty affordable things that are panels that sort of fold and you can create booths with it. Um, they're like 300 bucks or something like that. There's like things that you can find made to. So there's again gradation of microphone in terms of price, and then gradation of sound treatments as well.
Right.
Um,
I'm looking in some of the chat in here, and somebody says, those Harbor Freight blankets stink. To
that's
some people, it's sort of like, people trying to judge their own sound. To some people it sounds great. To other people, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
well, and
Everybody's different. So,
and there is actually, they are treated with chemicals and there is off gassing. So that's just a matter of figuring out how to air them out before you put them in a small space with you.
right.
Right. So
I mean,
and I think the more expensive the blankets, probably the less
right.
the less of
Yeah.
that.
But also something else you can do is, a nice duvet from Bed Bath and Beyond also works really, really well.
Yeah.
So, my philosophy is if you're just starting out, use the materials you have. And if
Mm,
they work, that's good.
yeah.
If they don't, then you move up to something else.
And what
So,
about the concept too of, I think a lot of times we're like, oh, we have to have a whole thing and a whole thing. But there's also the concept of just containing the microphone, like in a porta booth or
yeah, the
some,
porta booths are great for when you're traveling, and there's a real specific technique for doing that. And that takes a little bit more instruction than just, yeah, you can use one of those, but they're not
that
really
is a
good as a permanent.
concept to explore if you don't have either the
Right,
space
right,
or yeah.
right.
And then I guess you can also say, where do you put your clothes regularly? Like, because you could even, if you put it in an armoire, then you could put your microphone in the armoire, right?
You got to be, yeah,
There.
yeah, pretty small to be in an armoire, but
Well, no,
uh,
as long as your microphone's in there. I'm just saying, like, use what you have is
yeah.
what I
Well,
love
yeah. And
that.
by the way, and hanging clothes are the best sound, absorbers there are, which is why walk-in closets rock.
Mhm.
And I've created a lot of those in the last 6 weeks while people are desperate to have home studios. And we're using very simple microphones like Epigee mics, like our friends at Epigee make.
Mhm.
And I'm getting sound out of there that's like, you're set to go. It's fine. It works just fine because there's very little reflection if you use it properly against, a
Mhm.
rack of clothes, because they really just
Yeah.
suck all the reflection out of the room.
And can you just talk about those major concepts, Stan, of absorption and reflection? Like
Yeah,
the
well, well, there's two things you're trying to deal with the acoustics. One is keeping sound from the outside out,
Mhm.
making sure that, garbage trucks going by and traffic and your upstairs neighbor who wears clogs on a wood floor, things like that, and trying to prevent that from coming into the space that you're recording in.
Mhm.
And then the other is preventing reflection, and you achieve that by absorption, which is using soft materials. Either it's, expensive Oralex or something like that, or the producer's choice blankets, or the Harbor Freight blankets. You just have to wear a gas mask. And then, uh, or like I said, using a duvet, something that's going to absorb the sound and not reflect it back.
Mhm.
And things that diffuse the sound instead of passing it back directly, reflecting it back. It sends it off in a bunch of different directions, and then because it's being broken up, it dissipates faster, and then we don't it creates a very live normal sound that we would hear in anybody talking in a room.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope I'm not going over people's heads on this, but
No, I don't think that
the
we're
questions generally come down to these three
well, I
categories. So
think that's what I'm trying to do. That's kind of what we do at the dojo. Is like, okay, there's all of these concepts and all these things to know. Then great, how do you distill it down how you're thinking about things, and then what are the essential things that you need to know? And when you start thinking like that, then you can go, oh, okay, I can get my head around that,
yeah,
and that's
I I
simpler.
I see a great thing here from Ellen Dubin. And hi,
Yeah.
Ellen, how you doing? She's saying some studios want pictures of our studios. Hate that. If it sounds good, it is good. Isn't it good? And it's like, well, I mean, they want to see a picture of your microphone. That's arrogant. The sound you make out of your studio is the sound you have coming out of your studio. And if it's good, if it sounds good, it is good. If they request a picture of it, you can say, well, what is it specifically that you want to see? Because you know how to build a home studio? I find that very arrogant. And if that's the kind of attitude they have, unless they're paying you, $10,000 every time you key up the mic, I'd say someone is being more demanding than they need to be. That's just my opinion, and generally I found the people who pay the worst are the ones that ask for all this extra stuff.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting.
and the
Interesting.
people who pay the least are always the worst to work for, which you will learn in the voiceover business.
Yeah. Um, Good, good, good. Let's see if we can pop through a few more. There's so many good questions. So guys, there's a couple of questions that are not necessarily tech oriented. So I think what I'll do is just take a couple of minutes afterwards and see if we can address those typing afterwards.
Okay.
But while we have Dan here and we're in this focus mode, Martin okay, let me just find the words. These are words, and I'm going to say them. Wondering the best way to accurately determine the noise floor of my studio. Do you maximize the input gain on the DAW or the digital audio workstation and on the microphone interface and then record it? Or do you use a preset level on the interface and the DAW, a level you would use for your voice? Well, sounds like a lot of
I
stuff.
know exactly what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is you record at the level that you record at. You want to be able to be modulating consistently upwards of -6 and not peaking much more over -4, but not, little tiny peaks. And I mean, I can show you very quickly, say using twisted wave here,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it very easy to demonstrate certain things. Well, Mr. Twisted Wave. Okay,
And I
so
think that'll
share.
answer another question down the line of what are other recommendations if Audacity is a good solution, and there are even simpler solutions, Twisted Wave being one of them, right?
Right. Okay, so I got a lot of noise running in here right now. And one of the ways you can see that is by looking at the meter over here, if you can all see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually running a noise gate right now, so let me turn that off.
Oh, you see how much thicker it gets? Yeah.
Yeah, hold on 1 second here. Turn off process. Okay, now you can hear everything. You can hear the fan, you can hear the air conditioning. So how you measure your noise floor is you're silent. And you see this little number down here in the lower right-hand corner?
Mm-hmm.
That's telling me that there's noise there. Plus, we can see it here. And it's -53, -54. That's how you tell. That
Mm-hmm.
and this by the way is what your modulation should look like, not little tiny things like like over here. But if you see a rough thing there in the middle, that's noise. And then you just sort of put it in come on, where is you put it into loop and then just look at the meter.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say a gate, Dan, what does that mean, and how would you use it?
What a noise gate does, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you have an acceptable noise floor, like under -50. What a noise gate does, and I can show you this. Hopefully it shows up on here.
What does VST stand for?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Right.
Okay.
This is a dynamics processor and a noise gate. And what it's showing me is what is the lowest volume that that you can go where there's no noise, or where there is noise, and take it out. And what this does is this shows me I've got my at when the audio gets to minus 50 dB, it will reduce it by 3.75, meaning it will reduce the volume of that. So
Mm.
as I play this, watch what happens if it goes over. See how it turns red there?
Mm. So it just does it automatically then.
What it is it's turning down the volume of anything below that threshold, and it
Uh,
has to be set perfectly, otherwise the gate will open or close very slowly, and you're
so this
and you
is
don't
this
want
is
that.
this is a variation visually of the thing that you showed us before, like taking
Sort of. This
account.
has to do more with volume than it does with frequencies.
Well, okay, I see. Before you were talking about frequencies. This is just makes it quieter.
Right. And now, as you can
Oh,
see,
interesting. Okay.
and now there's no noise there.
Mm.
But if you get anything that's above that minus 50, the sound is going to be there, and it's going. So you have to
So you
have
can't use a gate unless it's like crystal clear. Like there's
right,
nothing.
exactly.
There's no little
Right.
boost.
You don't want anyone knowing you're using a noise gate.
Interesting. Okay, that's pretty helpful. That takes it to more complexity and then brings it back to, oh, what do we need to worry about? So
Right.
that's
Yeah, I think it's important that people need to understand, don't use noise reduction filters. Do things that don't use things that manipulate the digital uh, the various frequencies in there, and manipulates those sorts of things within the sound of your voice, as opposed to things that are below the frequency of your voice and are way above. And if you've got hissing and noise between where you are stopping and taking a breath and waiting to get to your next line, find out what the noise is and get rid of it before you have to start using all sorts of technological filters. Yeah, there are guys out there that say, oh, no, we'll set it like this, we'll set it like this, we'll set it like this. If you don't know what they're talking about, then chances are it's going to be hard. If you don't know what something does, why it does it, how it does it, and how to do it, don't. Unless somebody sets it up for you.
yeah. So cool. This is we've got a few more minutes. Figure it's cardboard box. Do you think we addressed this sort of putting the microphone?
Yeah, that has to do with like building your own little porta booth.
Yeah.
And
So it sounds like Leah, obviously, if you're, and so many folks are in New York, and tight spaces, loud lots of noise variations. So it is possible. And then I think maybe connecting with Dan, or maybe Dan, we can do a little build a booth sort of thing or something like that. So
yeah,
so it is possible. You just need to, there's just certain criteria that Dan said you need to keep in mind if you're putting your microphone in a box, how to approach it that way.
exactly. Better to build something that's a little larger and gives you a little bit more room to move, gesticulate, and do what you need to do as a voice actor, as opposed to leaning into this thing hanging on a shelf somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Make yourself comfortable. Don't overthink the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is this all making sense to everybody? We're trying to keep this as simple as possible. And we're seeing, well, what about this? What about that? I heard this thing. I hear this. And when somebody told me this. Pay no attention.
Well, those are the things, those are the things where it's good to have like this, yes, and yes, and Samantha's question is a really good one, maybe to kind of wrap up, and then we can see. We'll take a couple of minutes to talk about what else is going on and how to stay in contact with us. Obviously, there's so many questions around this, and there's lots that we can talk about in depth. So let's finish up with Samantha's question. Basically, she says she has $500 budget, which is step one. This is also why I adore working with Dan. He's like, what's your budget? get the best equipment that you can, and then understand that it's going to evolve, or you might not need to evolve it. It might be just fine to drive your Honda around for 20 years. It's just fine. So that's first of all. And so everyone needs to go, realistically, I'm starting a business, or I have a business and I'm investing in infrastructure. What is my budget? So start there and then ask the questions. I have so far for my home studio gear, Rode NT USB, Biodynamic Studio headphones. That's what I just got. I like them. And Voiceover booth to go. Recently acquired a walk-in closet, so upgrade. What is the best way to go about spending the budget to upgrade gear and home studio and have my home studio in the walk-in closet? Okay, so a lot of
Okay.
words, but basically
Well,
she's got $500. She's got a lot of foundational things. How would she upgrade? And then I guess the corollary to that question, Dan, is if you have $500, what is a good way to spend it?
well, one, having a walk-in closet helps a whole lot because that's going to prevent you from spending a whole lot more money trying to soundproof something.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a walk-in closet, use it as a walk-in closet and hang as many clothes in there as you possibly can. Really, all you need is a microphone stand, some headphones, and and then the right kind of microphone, and keeping it as simple as possible. Unless you got a Rode NT USB mic, better than most.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really tested the Rode USB, but Rode. A lot of companies have just really stepped up their game and are, because of digital technology, a lot of stuff is a lot better than it used to be. And the Rode NT USB is probably just fine in the right environment. And if the environment in there is good, that's everything you need. You just need to make sure that you've got a mic stand that's going to allow you to present your mic, like this, which is proper mic technique. You don't need a kids, you don't need a pop screen.
So we don't need a pop screen, because if we place the mic properly from above, then the air all goes below it.
Right. Because if I've got it set like this, if I've got, the mic right at the bridge of my nose, my copy is down here, I can go Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers all day long, and you're not going to hear any plosives. So what's the screen for? It's I like to say, to prevent Celine Dion from spitting on a $10,000 microphone. And because singers work a mic. If you're working a mic like this in voiceover, you are voice overacting. So,
yeah, and so a mic stand would then also be having something with a boom, so you could set it up.
right.
Like,
Yeah, you could get like that, or a reticulated arm like this one that you see in radio stations, which are really nice. And, it gives you the versatility to really move the mic around. And then learn proper mic technique, which is really where you can play with the levels a whole lot. You set your levels, set them, forget them, and then learn that you don't yell at people's ears from this far away. Now, yeah, you could pot it down and yell at somebody so it doesn't overmodulate, but you got to know when you're going to be doing that. Where it's better to actually, when you actually yell at somebody, say you're doing some game stuff, and go, "I'll kill you!"
And it even popped out there, yeah.
Right, and it doesn't really go. So you got to learn the mic proximity. The really great voice actors talk about, and you watch them, and they know how to use a mic and how to back off and use all that. And by the way, that takes years to learn. It's not stuff you're going to learn overnight, but it's stuff you need to learn.
You'll notice, you'll start learning and probably doing it organically as you understand the nuances of your work. So that's
right.
Good. Well, we need to wrap up, guys, because we try and keep this starting on time and ending on time. But this has been fantastic. Let us know if more of this is something that you want, because Dan and I can create that. Dan, can you type in how people can best keep in touch with you? Also,
I'm doing
before
that now.
everybody leaves, we do have a working relationship with Apogee Studios in Santa Monica, and we do have a Dojo discount. So if you're interested, let us know about that, and we can.
Yeah, they do have great stuff. And one of the things that they put out is the Apogee mic. With this little guy, it sounds great if you use it properly. Yeah. It's not really cheap, but it might be the only mic you ever need, despite what some people say.
Affordable. Yeah, and then the hype mic is a little bit more expensive, but
right.
Yeah. And in terms of, so Dan's put how to reach him in the chat, right? Where's the
Yeah,
chat?
and you can reach me there. You know, you can ask a question if you want to do a consult. That we have a discount with the dojo, so you know, ask me about that. If you want to submit a sample of audio, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage to the specimen collection cup. Click on that. Read the instructions carefully, and you know, and submit a demo to me or an audio to me that according to my instructions, so I can determine exactly what's going on in your booth, and then we can determine if you like really need to rethink it, or it's like, you know, turn off your furnace or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
And in terms of what's going on at the dojo, this is something you can put on your calendars the first Wednesday of every month. Dan's here, I'm here. Someone else really good is also here with us. So you have questions in the course of a month. It's a great place to get them answered. We have just started our You Should Do Voiceover May virtual intensive. If you're starting out or kind of on your journey but still need some foundations, or want to take it to the next, you know, you've taken it halfway and are ready to take it all the way, we start with the You Should Do Voiceover Intensive. We just started our May one, but we're filling the July, and we've also unrolled a do-it-yourself version of the You Should Do Voiceover Intensive. So that's all on the website, www.thevodojo.com. If you're a working pro, our nth degree working pro focus action forum is rolling, and we have some fantastic people that it's just an opportunity to come together and focus our efforts, get clear on your intentions, have some accountability, be working together, amplify your efforts by working together. There's a workout element, there's a focus action forum element, and then you also get discounts to the VO Dojo Pro Fight Club, which is the last thing I'll tell you about. So twice a month, and now all virtually because, you know, humans not being together part, we do the VO Dojo Pro Fight Club, which is our working pro workout. We bring together top-notch talent with the decision makers who hire us for a fiercely friendly face-off that turns the audition process transparent. So wherever you are in your journey, or if you aren't there yet, you have had that moment where you're like, and I'm done with my audition and I will send it off. And then we don't know what happens. So the Fight Club allows you to see what happens on both sides of the glass. It's a really, really powerful experience. Last month we had Ned Lott, who's like the guy who casts Disney features, Pixar features, Miyazaki features. And Sam Eufrit was our guest from Lotus Productions in New York. Coming up next month, or I guess that is next month, this month, Adu Padden, who's an amazing animation director, and is coming up, and then Renee Johnson from Disney Character Voices, who's absolutely brilliant. So to play, you need to have demo repped and booking and fill out an application. Slots go really fast, and then everyone can audit. So check out the website about that. Guys, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Tish, there's like one other thing. I know there's still a bunch of people here. A lot of people are asking about Source Connect. If you are an established talent, somebody who is making a living doing this, then you may be required to have Source Connect. If you are just auditioning and then you land a gig and someone says you need Source Connect, well, you go and buy Source Connect, and then you get that set up and do it. Don't buy it to get work to get it. It's one of those things. If you're good enough and you need it, then you get it. But you don't buy, you know, Source Connect because they say we won't hire you otherwise. Just tell people you do, and when they hire you, you get it. That's all.
Yeah, and it's not that much money. The people are really nice, and it's $35 a month. So obviously, hopefully, we're all hoping and knowing that we'll make more than $35 a month. I know it's
God willing.
I know it's treacherous times, but let's put that vision out. So it's a little thing, you know. And I have to admit that I had to get my stuff in, my ducks in a row on it because I'm spoiled, and you know, but it's not a big deal, and there's lots of people around to help. So, and the people at Source Connect are super nice and helpful. All right, guys, we're going to sign off. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. And thank you so much, Dan. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye bye.